My name was Laci Denise Peterson. I was 27 years old, and I was 8 months pregnant with a boy I had already named Conner. I had decorated a nursery. I had folded tiny onesies and stacked them in a drawer. I had imagined his first smile, his first steps, the sound of his laugh filling the house on Conner Avenue in Modesto, California. The house where I believed I was building my life. I disappeared on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2002. The world was busy wrapping gifts and watching holiday specials. My golden retriever Mackenzie was found alone that afternoon, wandering our neighborhood with his leash dragging in the mud. My keys were on the counter. My purse was inside. My phone had not moved. I never walked out that door. What happened to me became one of the most watched criminal cases in the history of the United States. Cameras followed every detail. America debated, grieved, and raged. My name appeared on magazine covers and television screens for years. But in all of that noise, in all of those hours of broadcast and all of those column inches of newsprint, one voice was almost never heard. Mine. So I am going to tell you my story. Not the way the cameras told it. Not the way the lawyers argued it. The way I lived it. And the way it ended. This is her final story. I came from good soil. That is not a metaphor. I literally grew up on a dairy farm outside Modesto, California, the kind of place where mornings smelled like fresh grass and warm milk, and the work never quite stopped. My mother is Sharon Rocha. My father is Dennis Rocha. They raised me in a home where people showed up for each other, where the table was always full, and the door was always open to neighbors. I was cheerleader in high school. I was the girl who remembered everyone's birthday, who brought food when someone was sick, who laughed loudly and meant it. I loved growing things. That love took me to California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly, where I studied ornamental horticulture. I wanted to understand how life grows, how roots anchor themselves in uncertain ground, how something small and fragile can become something strong and lasting if it receives the right care. Looking back now, I suppose I was always drawn to that idea. I believed in tending to things. I believed that if you put love in, love would come back. It was at Cal Poly that I met Scott Peterson. He was charming in that easy, effortless way that some people are. The kind of person who makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room without seeming to try. He studied agricultural business. He was athletic, broad-shouldered, quick to smile. When he turned his attention toward you, it felt like sunlight. We fell into each other, the way young people do when they are still new enough to the world to believe that the best things last forever. We married in August of 1997. I was 22 years old. In those early years, we were building something together. We opened a restaurant called The Shack in San Luis Obispo, and I threw myself into it the way I threw myself into everything, completely, joyfully, with both hands. When the restaurant didn't work out, we sold it in 2001 and moved to Modesto, back near my family. I found substitute teaching work at local schools. Scott took a job as a fertilizer salesman for Trade Corp. We bought the house on Conner Avenue. We planted a garden. We talked about children. And then, in the spring of 2002, we found out I was pregnant. I named him Conner. I chose that name before I even knew for certain it was a boy, because it felt right, solid and warm, a name a person could grow into. My due date was February 10th, 2003. I spent those months the way I spent most things in my life, with optimism. I decorated the nursery. I read the books. I let myself imagine the future in full color. Conner's first Christmas, his first birthday, the years stretching out ahead of us, golden and full. was the kind of person who believed in tomorrow. I need you to understand that about me, because what comes next is very hard, and it is easy when you know the ending to forget that I did not know it. I was living my life. I was making plans. I was looking forward. I was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's wife. I was going to be someone's mother. On the evening of December 23, 2002, I had dinner with my family. I got a trim at the salon where my sister-in-law Amy worked. I went to bed in my own house, in my own bed, next to my husband, with my dog sleeping nearby, and my son moving inside me. And I thought about Christmas morning and the quiet joy of a holiday spent close to the people you love. I did not know it was the last night I would ever spend in that house. I did not know it was the last time my family would see me alive. I want you to remember me before you learn what happened. I want you to see me the way the people who loved me saw me, full of life, full of plans, full of a future that I had every right to expect. Because that is who I was. And that matters more than anything else I am about to tell you. There is a particular cruelty in looking backward. When you know how a story ends, everything that came before it takes on a different shape. The small moments that seemed ordinary become something else entirely. A missed signal, a red flag that blended into the background of an everyday life. I am going to tell you about some of those moments. Not because I want you to judge me for the choices I made, but because I need you to understand how these things work, how the danger is almost never obvious, how the person who harms you most is almost always the person you least expected. I want to talk about the boat. Sometime in late 2002, Scott purchased a 14-foot aluminum fishing vessel. He paid cash for it, approximately $1,400, and he did not tell me about it. That, on its own, might seem like a small thing. People make small purchases without mentioning them. But the boat was not small. It was a significant item, bought in secret, stored in our warehouse, and mentioned to me only after investigators would later confirm he had already begun to use it. He told me about it on December 20th, 2002, 4 days before I disappeared. I need you to sit with that. He also told me he planned to go fishing on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, the day before one of the most family-centered holidays of the year. He said he was going out on the San Francisco Bay, the Berkeley Marina, alone, in a boat he had only recently purchased, in late December, when the water was cold and the conditions were unpredictable. This is what he told the police he was doing when I vanished. I am not going to claim I knew something was wrong. I did not know. I cannot tell you that, because honesty matters to me even now, even here. What I can tell you is what the people around me noticed, what the investigators later pieced together, what the evidence ultimately revealed about the man I had built my life with. In November of 2002, approximately 6 weeks before I disappeared, while I was visibly pregnant with his child, Scott began a romantic relationship with a woman named Amber Frey. Amber was a massage therapist from Fresno. She was kind, she was trusting, and she was given a version of Scott Peterson that bore almost no resemblance to the man who came home to me every night. He told her he was not married. He told her he was widowed. He told her he had lost his wife, and that this would be his first holiday season without her. A statement he made to Amber Frey in November of 2002, weeks before I actually disappeared. Investigators would later describe this detail as chilling. He had already built the narrative of a grieving widower before he had any reason to need it. When Amber saw my face on the news in the early days of January 2003, she contacted police immediately. She was cooperative. She agreed to record her phone calls with Scott and turn them over to investigators. What those recordings revealed was a portrait of a man living in two separate realities simultaneously. Calling Amber from Paris, pretending to celebrate the new year while my family was at home, devastated, begging the public for any information about where I had gone. He told Amber he loved her. He sent her text messages. He called her from locations that did not match the timeline he had given police. I want to be careful here not to tell you more than the evidence supports. What I can tell you is what was documented, what was recorded, what was verified. And what was verified is this. While I was pregnant with his son, while I was planning our child's nursery, and looking forward to our first Christmas as a family of 3, my husband was constructing a different life. A secret life. One in which I was already gone. There were other things too. Things that only became visible in the light of what followed. Scott had borrowed money from his parents not long before I vanished. He had begun inquiring, in vague and general ways, about real estate, about what might happen to a house if one spouse were to disappear. His GPS records would later show unusual activity. He had searched on his home computer for information about ocean currents near the Berkeley Marina. The exact currents, the investigators would note, that carried my body and Connor's body to the shore where they would eventually be found. None of these things were crimes on their own. None of them, individually, would have been enough to stop what was coming. But together, in the cold light of reconstruction, they form a picture of a man who was planning something, of a danger I was too close to see. I did not see it. I want to be honest about that. Not because it is comfortable, but because it is true, and because the truth is what matters most in a story like mine. I did not see it because I was not looking for it, because I was living my life, because I believed in the person I had chosen, because the most dangerous place for a woman is not a dark alley or an unfamiliar street. The most dangerous place for a woman is beside the person she trusts most. I need you to remember that. Not as a statement about every marriage, not as a reason to be afraid of love, but as a fact, documented and verified across decades of research and countless stories like mine, that the people who love us are also, statistically, the people most likely to hurt us. I did not know I was in danger, but the danger was already there. December 24th, 2002. Christmas Eve. I want to tell you about that morning the way I remember it. The quiet of the house. The particular winter light that comes through the windows in Modesto in late December. Soft and thin and pale. Mackenzie was moving around, the way he always did in the mornings, eager for his walk. I was 8 months pregnant. My back ached. The baby shifted and settled inside me, and I remember the specific weight of being that close to the end of a pregnancy, when you feel both enormous and luminous, exhausted and electric at the same time. The television was on. Martha Stewart's show was playing in the background. Scott told me he was going fishing at the Berkeley Marina. He loaded some equipment, and he left. I do not know exactly what happened next inside that house. I cannot tell you that, because no one can. Because the truth of what happened in those hours has never been fully reconstructed by the evidence. What investigators know, what they were able to establish, and what a jury later evaluated, is a timeline built from the details surrounding that day. What is known? Scott Peterson arrived at the Berkeley Marina that morning. He launched the 14-foot aluminum boat he had purchased just weeks before. He was seen by other witnesses at the marina. He returned home later that afternoon. What else is known? Neighbors reported seeing me walking Mackenzie that morning near our home. The prosecution would later argue that these sightings were mistaken, misidentified dates, faulty memories, and the jury ultimately agreed. The defense would argue the opposite. What is undeniable? By the time Scott called my mother that afternoon, I was gone. The house was empty. My car was in the garage. My purse was inside. My phone was on the counter. My keys had not moved. Mackenzie was found by a neighbor, wandering alone, his leash muddy, his collar on but no hand holding the other end. My mother has said, in interviews over the years, that when she received that phone call from Scott, that I was missing, something in her already knew. Mothers carry their children in a place so deep that no language quite reaches it. She has said she felt the ground shift under her feet the moment she understood what he was telling her. By that evening, police had been called. The search began immediately. Hundreds of volunteers responded in the days that followed. Neighbors, strangers, people who had never met me but who recognized, in the details of my disappearance, something that frightened them deeply. The reward money climbed. The vigils were held. Candles were lit. Scott Peterson attended vigils for me. He spoke to journalists. He appeared on national morning shows and cried on camera. He said he missed me. He said he was desperate for my return. On December 30th, 6 days after I disappeared, Amber Frey walked into a police station and told investigators about the affair. She brought phone records. She brought text messages. She agreed to wear a wire and continue speaking to Scott while investigators listened. What those recordings revealed, over the weeks that followed, was a man who seemed entirely unbothered. He called Amber on New Year's Eve and described the celebrations around him. He told her he was in Paris. He was not in Paris. He was in Modesto, California, where his pregnant wife had been missing for 1 week, where his in-laws were living in anguish, where candles burned in windows and strangers drove through neighborhoods holding photographs of my face. He told Amber he loved her. He made plans with her. He did not sound like a man whose world had been destroyed. In January, investigators intensified their focus on Scott. They searched our home. They searched the warehouse where he stored his work equipment and where, alongside bags of fertilizer and agricultural supplies, they found the 14-foot boat. In the boat, forensic investigators found a single strand of hair. It was submitted for mitochondrial DNA analysis. The results matched my DNA profile. Investigators also found what appeared to be homemade concrete anchors, heavy, irregular, clearly fashioned by hand rather than purchased. Cement dust was found on tools in the warehouse. The anchors were consistent in weight and material. The fishing boat, when fully loaded, would have sat low in the water. Scott's cell phone records were subpoenaed. The GPS tracking data from his vehicle was obtained. The records would place him, on multiple occasions in the weeks that followed my disappearance, in the vicinity of the Berkeley Marina, the same stretch of the San Francisco Bay, where months later, 2 bodies would be found washed ashore. I want to pause here, because this is the part of the story where most true crime narratives move into the mechanics of investigation and away from the human being at the center. I do not want to do that. I do not want to become a data point in my own story, a collection of evidence tags and forensic results and case file numbers. So let me bring it back to what was real. On the morning of December 24, 2002, I was a 27-year-old woman with a baby due in 6 weeks. I loved Christmas. I had a golden retriever who needed walking. I was watching television in my home, in a neighborhood I had chosen, surrounded by a life I had built with care and with hope and with everything I had. And then, something happened. And I never came home. Conner never came home. The details of what happened inside that house on Christmas Eve have never been confirmed by physical evidence. There is no crime scene. There is no weapon. There is only what came after: the absence, the search, the recordings, the hair in the boat, and eventually, in the cold and gray early spring of 2003, the discovery that would end the search and begin a different kind of reckoning entirely. I'm going to tell you what I watched from wherever I am now. I watched my mother. Sharon Rocha became, in those weeks and months, something extraordinary. A woman who refused to stop fighting even when the weight of what she was carrying would have broken most people entirely. She appeared before cameras. She made public appeals. She spoke my name over and over again, refusing to let the world reduce me to a missing persons case or a statistic. She said my name like it was something worth protecting. Because it was. My brother Brent stood beside her. My family rallied in the way that close families do. Not perfectly, not without fracture, but with a fierce and sustaining love that kept them upright when the ground kept shifting. I watched the search unfold across Modesto. Hundreds of volunteers, dogs trained to find what the human eye cannot. Helicopters crossing the sky above the neighborhoods where I had walked with Mackenzie, where I had waved to neighbors, where I had been so recently, simply alive and unremarkable in the best possible way. The search turned up nothing. Through January. Through February. The month Conner was supposed to be born. Through March. And then, on April 13th, 2003, 109 days after I disappeared, a man walking along the shoreline at Point Isabel Regional Shoreline near Richmond, California, made a discovery that would change everything. A small body, a fetus, a boy. He was identified through DNA as Conner Scott Peterson. The following day, April 14th, the torso of a woman washed ashore approximately 1 mile away, severely decomposed. The head was missing. The arms were missing. The legs were gone. But the medical examiner, Dr. Brian Peterson, no relation, was able to determine that the remains were consistent with a woman who had been submerged in cold salt water for several months. On April 18th, DNA and dental records confirmed what my family already knew in the place beneath language where knowing happens before the words come. The remains were mine. The autopsies revealed what the water had not destroyed and what it had. Conner, the medical examiner concluded, had likely died in the uterus, probably from the same event that killed me, and had been expelled from my body naturally through the process of decomposition in the water. My remains showed fractures consistent with the forces of ocean currents on a body over months, not with blade or bullet. There was no gunshot wound, no stab wound. The cause of my death was listed as undetermined. The water and time had taken too much for certainty. But the location said something that the condition of my body could not. We were found less than 2 miles from the Berkeley Marina. Exactly where Scott said he had been fishing on Christmas Eve. The same stretch of the San Francisco Bay. The same water. On April 18, 2003, the same day my identity was confirmed, Scott Peterson was arrested at the Torrey Pines golf course in La Jolla, California. He was 300 miles from home. He had dyed his hair and beard a pale blonde, unrecognizable from the dark-haired man the cameras had come to know. He had approximately $15,000 in cash. He had survival supplies. He had 4 cell phones. He had his brother's identification and his brother's credit cards. He had Viagra. He was 20 miles from the Mexican border. Investigators charged him that day with 2 counts of murder. First-degree murder for my death, and second-degree murder for Conner's. I watched my family receive the news. I watched my mother's face. I cannot tell you what that looked like without losing the composure I am trying to hold on to for you. For this story. For the telling of it. What I can tell you is that grief like that, grief that has been waiting for months, grief that has been held in the body like a stopped breath. When it finally breaks, it breaks differently than ordinary grief. It does not fall. It does not collapse. It opens, like a wound that has been kept closed too long, and everything that was held inside comes forward at once. My family had known, I think, for a long time. They had known and had kept knowing at bay with the only thing more powerful than certainty, which is hope. And now the hope was gone. The investigation had done its work. Now came the reckoning. The trial began on June 1st, 2004. It was moved from Modesto to Redwood City, 200 miles away, because the publicity surrounding my case had made it impossible to find impartial jurors in Stanislaus County. The judge acknowledged what everyone already knew. My name had saturated California. My face had been on every channel, every front page. The story of what happened to me on Christmas Eve had become something larger than a single family's tragedy. It had become a national conversation about justice, about marriage, about what it means to trust and to be betrayed. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Rick DiStasso. Scott's defense was handled by attorney Mark Garagos. The trial lasted 5 months. 174 witnesses testified. The evidence presented was, in its entirety, circumstantial. There was no murder weapon, no crime scene, no eyewitness to what happened in our house on the morning of December 24, 2002. The prosecution built its case from the architecture of everything surrounding that morning. The affair, the recordings, the hair in the boat, the concrete anchors, the GPS data, the behavior that followed my disappearance. Amber Frey testified. She sat in that courtroom and told the truth about everything Scott had told her. That he was a widower, that he had lost his wife, that he was looking forward to spending the holidays with Amber and building a new future. She played the recordings. The courtroom heard Scott's voice, warm and casual, calling from near the vigils being held in my name. The defense argued that I had been abducted by strangers, that the evidence was circumstantial and therefore insufficient, that Scott was being convicted not on proof, but on the public's hatred of a man who had committed adultery. On November 12, 2004, after deliberating for 7 days, the jury returned their verdict. Guilty. First-degree murder with special circumstances, meaning the murder was committed while another murder was occurring simultaneously, for my death. Second-degree murder for Conner's death. On March 16, 2005, Superior Court Judge Alfred DeLucchi sentenced Scott Peterson to death by lethal injection. He described the crime as cruel and heartless. Scott was transferred to San Quentin State Prison, to the row of cells where men wait for an end that comes slowly, if at all. I want to tell you what happened next, because the story did not end with the sentence. In 2020, the California Supreme Court reviewed Scott's case and found that errors had been made during jury selection. The trial judge had dismissed jurors who expressed reservations about the death penalty without adequately questioning them about whether those reservations would actually affect their ability to render a fair verdict. Based on this procedural error, the court vacated the death sentence. The murder convictions were upheld entirely. In December 2021, Scott Peterson was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was transferred in 2022 to Mule Creek State Prison in Ione, California, where he remains today. In 2024, the Los Angeles Innocence Project took on Scott's case, raising a series of claims about potential new evidence, a possible burglary in the neighborhood on December 24th. Questions about DNA on tape found on my clothing, challenges to the timeline of Conner's death, and allegations of juror misconduct. In 2025, the California Court of Appeals rejected 18 of the 19 claims raised. One DNA test was approved for further review, but the conviction itself was not overturned. As of March 2026, Scott Peterson is 53 years old. He is serving a sentence of life without parole. Legal experts following the Innocence Project's efforts have described the likelihood of a successful appeal as low. I am going to tell you something honest about all of this. I do not know, in the way that living people use the word know, whether the verdict was just. I cannot stand before you and say with absolute certainty what happened inside our house on Christmas Eve morning, because the evidence, as thorough as it was, did not produce a direct witness to that moment. What I can tell you is what the evidence did produce: a pattern, a timeline, a set of facts that 12 people evaluated carefully and concluded, beyond a reasonable doubt, pointed in one direction. What I know is that I am gone. Conner is gone. We are both gone, and neither of us had any reason to be. What I know is that the people who loved me, my mother, my brother, the friends who searched for me in the cold and dark of a California winter, deserved the truth. They deserved to be able to bury me. They deserved the years of my life that were taken from them. What I know is that a jury looked at the evidence and reached a verdict. And that verdict is the closest this world will ever come to accounting for what happened on that Christmas Eve morning. My life ended before Conner ever drew his first breath. I never got to hold him. I never got to see his face. I never got to know whether his eyes were mine or his father's, whether he would love gardens the way I did, whether he would grow tall and strong and find some corner of the world to make his own. That is the part of my story that breaks me, even now. Not the fear, not the loss of my own future, but the loss of his. Conner never had a chance to become anything at all. My mother became an activist after losing me. She has spoken publicly about domestic violence, about the silence that surrounds it, about the courage it takes to name danger when it wears the face of someone familiar and beloved. She said once that telling my story keeps me alive in some form. I believe her. So if there is something I want you to carry away from this, from everything I have told you today, let it be this: pay attention to what is hidden. The secret purchases, the unexplained absences, the version of your partner that exists only when you are not in the room. These things do not always mean what happened to me happened to you, but they are worth paying attention to. They are worth asking about. You are worth the discomfort of asking. Trust the part of yourself that notices. Do not talk yourself out of it. Do not make yourself smaller so that the truth fits better. Do not wait. My name was Laci. I was 27 years old, and I believed in tomorrow. I want you to believe in yours, and to protect it with everything you have. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for remembering me. This was her final story.